Moving across to Netflix, we have a new feature-length documentary which arrives on Friday the 27th of September. It's called Will and Harper, and here's a clip.
A long time ago, back when I was at Saturday Night Live, I met a guy who was hired as a writer the same week I was hired. He wrote a bunch of sketches for me and eventually became the head writer of SNL. And over the years, he became one of my closest friends. And then one day, I got this email. Hey, Will, something I need you to know. I'll be transitioning to live as a woman.
Yes, well, if you're a fan of Will Ferrell, then you can properly fangirl like I did, because this is just, honestly, it brought, from what I've seen of it, has absolutely brought tears to my eye, really. It was just something really lovely about this, and something really sad, and something very happy, and kind of every emotion rolled into one with this. And so this is Will Ferrell as himself. It's a documentary, and it's based on his friendship with his good friend Harper, who he'd been friends with for some 30 years, which actually is really quite nice because, they I suppose it's back in the beginning to a degree when they started out, and they just remained, amazingly good friends. And Harper isn't necessarily a name that you'd go, oh yeah, I know them. Of course you don't. And this is about 3 years ago. He told Will that he was going to transition, was come out as a trans woman. And in this documentary, you see the two of them embark on this 2-week road trip from New York to LA. And I suppose it's to work out what that means, what it will do to their friendship and how it will change their friendship potentially. Well, Will Ferrell is, as we all know, really very funny. So there are some really sort of tickling moments here, and I particularly like the one about the driving. He said, since you've become a woman, has your driving become worse? And it's just a particularly funny moment. But equally, there are moments where you see Will tear up, get upset. I suppose he sees to a degree some of the difficulties that his friend is having to go through. It's not an easy choice or decision to make. And then you see them talk about how they've always felt different, and how I think it was probably from the age of, I think they said it was either 3 or 5. How they felt different to who they should have been or who they were. It's just the things that they would have done together perhaps aren't as possible anymore. Choosing different things to do together. Will seeing it through his friend's eyes. Someone calls her bro, and he says, actually, it's my friend, it's a woman. And it's really tough in places, but equally, as I say, all the emotions kind of rolled into one. I found myself really tearing up in places. I felt it was really incredibly moving to see these two, their friendship that is clearly unbreakable. The support that Will gives is amazing. And how hard it is to perhaps feel safe in this situation and feel that it's okay to be who you really are. So there's lots of messages, lots of takeaways from this, lots of happy moments, tears of joy, tears of sadness. But I think I thoroughly recommend it. What did you think, Ian?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. And it reminded me of a superb film called Transamerica, starring Felicity Huffman as a trans woman taking a road trip after unexpectedly discovering that she is a mother. Anyway, Will Ferrell, much loved comic star, larger than life, but you're seeing a very different side of Will Ferrell in this, because he's just being himself for the most part, although right at the beginning there's a great, they're interviewing him straight to camera, and he's saying, I'm Will Ferrell, one of the world's greatest actors, which is hilarious. But mostly it's just him being himself with his mate Harper. And I hope that it will answer a lot of questions people might have about transitioning, because Harper's was a family man, now a family woman, obviously. So we meet her kids. And Will is sort of asking the questions. I should say, Hannah, statistically, women are safer drivers. Just asking the questions that we might all have about transitioning from a man to a woman. And Harper's very articulate about what she's going through. But there's also a darker side to it as well, because at one point they go to a restaurant in Texas, and Will does a sort of steak eating competition, and there's lots of horrible tweets afterwards from people who either were there or who've seen a photograph of the two of them on social media. So it just reminds you of the awful abuse that trans people often suffer. But I hope this will dispel some of the prejudices with any luck. And it's also just a picture of a really lovely friendship that dates back to when they were both on Saturday Night Live, the brilliant American sketch show where Harper was the writer and Will was one of the big stars. So, yeah, something very different. And I found it really moving and thoroughly interesting. So, yeah, recommended.